the Madman!
Hello, welcome to Custom Card Review, week of December 1st, as in the cards. Let's go ahead and kick it off with a really cool one. Cannonball, warrior spell, 4 mana. Deal 4 damage to your opponent's leftmost minion, overkill, cast this again. In the ideal situation, this is 4 mana, deal 3 damage to all of your opponent's minions. Even that still just puts it somewhere around the realm of Hellfire. Yes, Hellfire kills your own board, but usually when you're playing a control deck, you don't have much of a board. So I think this is awfully fair. Very nice strategic option where you're going to have to really worry about your opponent's minions' health totals. And it's a card that if it saw print, the opponent could play around by putting high health minions on the left. I give the design 5 stars, balance 5 stars. Netherwalker, a warlock minion, 4 mana, 2/6. Has taunt and death rattle, retreat into the Twisting Nether, play Twisting Nether to resummon it. So along with your Twisting Nether, Netherwalkers come, causing quite a tempo shift because instead of there being a clear board, there's a clear board with you start with a 2/6 taunt, potentially 2 2/6 taunts, or such as your second Twisting Nether if you've played 2 Netherwalkers prior, and 2 were summoned in the first Twisting Nether, you would summon 4 in the next one. So first of all, is a 4 mana 2/6 taunt stat line fine? Yeah, absolutely, that's Stegadon. Secondly, is it okay for Twisting Nether to be such a tempo swing, where you get to clear the board and then you get to immediately start off with some 2/6s? And I think that's fine. Control Warlocks have done more disgusting things, and Twisting Nether isn't really that big of a concern as a card. Such a deck by design would be pretty slow, and there are counters to that. So on this one, design 5 star, balance 5 star. I think it would open up a really interesting Netherwalker, Twisting Nether type deck. One potential concern is that that is an epic that relies on another epic, but since the epic it's relying on is from the classic set, I think it's arguably fine. Bladed Creeper, rogue, 2 mana, 1/3 minion. Enchantments applied to your weapon are also applied to this mech. So this was designed before Leeching Poison was nerfed, but I actually think that this card would be fine even with old Leeching Poison. In its most extreme, crazy situation, maybe you're playing this in Wild, you have Tink Master's Oil. Play the Oil, your weapon gets +3 attack, this minion gets potentially +3 attack from the minion buffing part, and then another +3 attack from the weapon buffing this. So could be a 2 mana 7/3, or rather 6 mana 7/3 if you play the same turn as Oil. But hey, even in that best case, it's fine. I actually think that the card might even be a little bit on the weak side in the sense that I couldn't think of a deck that would run the card, but it's balanced well in the sense that this is too good to be a 2 mana 2/3, I think. So design 5 stars, I think it's a great idea, and balance 5 stars. Hunter Hero Zul'jin, 10 mana, a battle cry, deal your missing health as damage, splitting among enemy minions. So if you're at 10 and you play this, you are hitting enemy minions for 20 damage. Your hero power becomes Berserker Throw, which for 2 mana does 2 damage to a minion, and if it survives, you get to have the hero power refresh, basically making it cheap shot, with the exception that as soon as you kill something, your hero power stops refreshing. I think that the design of this card is very oppressive in the sense that once you have this out, your opponent could just be locked out of the game, because getting cheap shot every single turn allows you to deal with any minions that have total health total of 10 or under as they're played. So it's like a one-man clearing crew, and your opponent will quickly be driven to despair because of the oppressive nature of the hero power. I have to give the design 2 stars. The ability seems strange in a Hunter. I'm not sure Hunter should get this ability, and the hero power, it's just so oppressive. Very unfun to play against. In terms of balance, I think it's a bit overpowered, but it would be very difficult to envision how to balance the card while not just drastically changing the bad design. Ogre Brawler, 4 mana 2/5 neutral minion with Wind Fury, with the restriction can't attack the same target twice. A bit of caution about Wind Fury is that a lot of decks have seen bad Wind Furies be put into it. in order to enable the Shaman and the Paladin of Evenness to activate their Corpse Takers. This card somehow doesn't even outclass Windfury Harpy though. Just a bit too weak. I like the idea of the card. It's cool to have the restriction of can't attack the same target twice on the Windfury minion. Design 5 stars, balance 4 stars. I think it can be bumped up to a 4 mana 3/5 and actually be pushed as a decent Windfury minion even. Merciful Death. This one's a doozy. 7 mana 7/7 lifesteal. Whenever you take fatigue damage, deal the same amount to all enemy characters. So first of all, 7 mana 7/7 lifesteal is arguably already pretty decent. This card goes a bit further and basically says if you're taking fatigue, you don't take the fatigue, and in fact, you heal quite a bit because this is dealing damage to all enemy characters. So if your opponent had just a few minions out there, you're renewing every single turn at the end, and you're constantly clearing the board. It's kind of ridiculous. The design I'm going to give 3 stars just from the sense of I think there might be some design space in whenever you take fatigue damage, do stuff to opponents. That might be interesting. Certainly, the card should not have lifesteal though. Balance 1 star on the absolutely absurd level of overpoweredness that Merciful Death is right now. Thordle is a hunter weapon, 3 mana, 0 attack, 5 durability. When you cast a spell, gain attack equal to its cost this turn only. So at first glance, this might seem a bit innocent. It's like, okay. You have to activate it with spells. It's got 0 attack, so it can't really be used at the same turn you play it. But where this gets really absurd is you can cast 10 mana worth of spells, and then you basically have a 10 attack weapon. Maybe you do this a few turns. This weapon tops off at 50 damage if you manage to cast 50 mana worth of spells. And that is just way too much potential on a card. For the sense of the text just being nearly unbalanceable whatsoever, it is a poor design. 2 stars on design. Potential possibilities to balance such a weapon would be to, whenever you cast a spell, set your weapon's attack equal to the spell's mana cost so that you couldn't just stack spells. But even so, like, this would have to have such a high mana cost in order to be played that it would seem really absurd. The balance on this is currently 1 star, and it is so strong that I would consider 2 durability on this weapon to be too powerful, because that is 20 potential damage right there. It would be absolutely absurd. Admittedly, you have to set it up, but when you're playing it in Spell Hunter, the setup is not that hard. Wrathmancer Agar. 5 mana 5/5, overkill, add a 1 cost spell to your hand that deals the excess damage. It's a minion with which is just a 5 mana 5/5 with a cool ability. So if your opponent wants to deal with it, they should be able to deal with it. I think it's a completely fair card because any damage that you've wasted turns into just spells to deal the extra damage. I really like the idea. This has some interesting applications with cards like BobbyLinn and with Malygos. I'll give the design of that 5 stars. I think it's really creative and a really cool idea. Balance 5 stars. I think it's well balanced as well. I don't think there are any overpowered applications to this card, and I think it's just a very cool concept. Sausages. Hunter spell 1 mana. Give a minion +1/+1, all beasts attack it. I think the flavor on this is delicious. It's really cool to envision tossing out some sausages and then having all of your beasts like pounce on the minion. And it's kind of like banana in the sense that the thing you're feeding the sausages to gets buffed. I think it's a really cool idea that I'm going to give the design of 5 stars, even though I'm going to give the balance 1 star because it's dreadfully underpowered. The effect of this card is effectively to give your beasts rush on attacking one specific minion, which by the way, you're also buffing. It's a problem. And yes, this card has some anti-beast hunters potential when you put this on your gastropod or something and then you clear the opponent's field, but really that barely ever happens. So clearly I must think that the design has some salvage space if I rated the balance a 1 star, right? Because even if this card were 0 mana, I think it would still be too weak. So Where can you change the design to make this viable? It's simple. Add draw a card to it. This would come with its own downsides though, because then you can just play it in a deck that isn't running Beast, and then you have a 1 mana, give a minion, probably yours, +1/+1, and then draw a card. That seems a bit too powerful. What about if you changed it to give an enemy minion +1/+1, all beasts attack it, draw a card? There you go. A little bit convoluted, but I think it would be a cool idea and a very cool card. Finally, we've got a Paladin Secret, Last Stand. For 1 mana, when your hero takes overkill damage, restore health to it equal to twice the excess damage. I think the design on it is a really cool idea. It's kind of intended to be a ice block type effect, which is very weak, but which serves the fact that the secret only costs 1 mana. I think the design, 5 stars. The balance, I'm going to give 3 stars, because your opponent will easily be able to play around it and then the card will do nothing. They deal perfect damage to you for lethal, which isn't that hard generally, and then this card does nothing. And if they set you to -1, then the card will set you to 1, basically making it just 1 mana gain 2, which is kind of worthless considering your opponent can just deal 1 more damage to you usually. I would say nearly no matter how you worded the card, like even if you quintupled 5 times the excess damage, like the card would still be too weak to see constructed play. That said though, not all cards necessarily have to be to the level of being constructed worthy. They just have to be cool effects with, alright, it's reasonable enough that in fringe cases, maybe people would think it would be cool to play the card. Make it triple the excess damage. It can be buffed up that extent. And certainly sometimes you put out Last Stand against your opponent's 10 attack minion and you're at like 4 and they hit you and set you to -6 and then suddenly you're at 18 with my suggested fix. That's pretty cool. I think the card would be able to tell some epic stories if the situation were perfect. But it really is worth mentioning that I think that even if the card said whenever your hero takes overkill damage, set yourself to 30, I think the card still wouldn't be played at that extreme. Just because it would just become a goal of, okay, so the opponent has to deal perfect damage. There's so many decks that can, that this would just be a waste, generally. Even if it never sees play, people will be dreaming about it, you might discover it through some effects, and it'll tell some epic tales. Similar to how Eye for an Eye is never played, but can lead to some epic tales in the end. So there's your top cards from week of December 1st, and we're going to be catching up soon on cards that were designed with full knowledge of what was coming in Rusticon's Rumble.